What I think is the most exciting part is that what I think robotics and the automation and the power of AI now embodied in these robots means for operators of these hospitality and service businesses is going to be limitless. And I think that it's exciting to think about these as new tools in their toolkits to um, develop really powerful customer experiences.
We're trying to solve a problem here.
Tomorrow's going to be very exciting.
We are so excited about the future.
I will build your roads.
We don't need roads.
Today, I'm here with Matt Casella, who's the president of a company called Rich Tech Robotics. Matt has over 20 years experience in business strategy, executing technology forward solutions at large, all that kind of stuff. Super interesting stuff. Rich Tech specializes in robotics in the hospitality industry. So really interesting stuff. Matt, so happy to have you here today. Let's jump into this. These are just rapid fire questions. Okay. First one, what's one piece of technology you selfishly could not live without?
I think, it's my phone. I mean, I don't know if that even counts anymore as technology because it's now become an appendage for most of us. So, but that's got to be it. I mean, it's amazing to think back. I mean, 10 years, what are we, 10 years, 12 years into this, something like that. It's become a lifeline. So it's that. And then I would say, to give another answer, I'll keep it quick, is probably just like home security stuff. For me, for some reason, I find that fun to be able to set up home security stuff and be able to access it and be able to monitor. And it's like a sense of, sense of comfort that is very easy to do and allows for a peace of mind when you're away from home.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. We might come back to some of that. I like it. What's one piece of technology you wish we didn't have in our world today?
Phones. So that gave me a little pause, but as a father of four, that's like a battle that we're already waging. My oldest son is 13, right? So he does not have a phone at the moment. We're going to go with a watch, an Apple Watch, because I want him to have the freedom. But it's a hard thing to manage when kids all have, a lot of his friends have phones and have for multiple years. So it's a battle that we have to fight. And then what's really hard, what I talked about, us now having phones, myself having a phone, I can be on my phone doing work, right? Which is what I use it for most of the time. Will I also use it for entertainment? Absolutely. But my kids don't understand the difference of when I'm on my phone for work or when I'm on it for entertainment. So for them, that's just an excuse that they could be on it all the time if they had when they have iPads, right? Which are a little, maybe one step removed, but it's a tough thing to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think it was actually 13 that Steve Jobs wouldn't let his kids have a phone or an iPad or whatever, I think, until they were 13.
Right. And
Yeah.
I understand why. I mean, it's hard. It's hard for those developing brains to kind of make the distinctions that are important when having one and using one. And it's something you just have to be mindful of.
Yeah. It's a real thing. Okay. What's one piece of technology that you are looking forward to in the future? Flying cars, Web3, whatever.
Flying cars to me is the coolest one. I mean, robots, the ability to have robots around doing, all sorts of things, that's certainly exciting, but the freedom that flying cars could potentially bring to all of us, and freedom by, I live in Southern California, so freedom from traffic potentially, right? Freedom to go to new places. That idea, quickly whenever you want, that is that to me is so exciting. And being at CES the past couple of years, seeing some some different iterations of the ideas around that. That to me is super exciting.
Yeah. We actually had a guest on the pod not long ago who was doing what happens when we have traffic in the airspace.
You know, I think we're at a tough time right now. You know, from our national, airspace control, air traffic control perspective, where we're hearing a lot about that. So that's certainly top of mind. I think that it's, you know, the understanding of how, you know, we're going to progress so rapidly with AI developments, et cetera, that can manage a lot of these things for us. I'm a believer in that, right? Like I have we have a Tesla, a Model Y I don't have the full self-driving, but they give it to you every once in a while as a teaser to try to get you to say yes to it and subscribe to it. And I've definitely taken part in that. And that to me is amazing, right? The idea that I can just be, just be sitting there and be a passenger in the car. I mean, what that means fast forwarded to the next 5 or 10 years is really amazing. And I think, you know, again, as a parent, thinking about what that's going to mean for our kids, for my kids who are now, you know, oldest is just 13, so driver's license coming in 3 years. That's going to still be dramatically different than it is even today, I think, for him and what his relationship with a car means. I mean, I think back to when when I and my friends turned 16, and man, I remember the first place we went when my first friend got his license, right? I mean, that was kind of this new thing, but I don't know that they have the same, they're looking forward to it in the same way that we were necessarily, but
yeah, that's probably true. Okay, I want to ask you something about the Model Y because
sure.
My wife was looking at them and she didn't like it. And so we had this discussion about it that I thought was really interesting. The reason she doesn't like it is because, in my opinion, they're moving away from the driver. And so she was like, I can't see how fast I'm going. And the guy was like, oh yeah, you can just turn around and see it on the giant screen or whatever. She was like, I'm looking at the road.
Right.
But it feels to me like they've made the step, like you're not the driver, you're just the conductor.
By moving all of that information from, you know, behind the wheel, which is where you're used to looking down and checking it out, to over in that center console piece. She's certainly not wrong. My wife had the response that she didn't like how congested that monitor was, right? That she didn't like that all that had going on. So she she was like, I don't want to see this whole dynamic map that's changing and it's too realistic, and you can modify that a little bit. So, but it's interesting. I love it. And I'm okay with like I said, I was all in to experiment with the self-driving. My wife was a little hesitant. I think my father-in-law, who I spoke with about it, and tried to get him to take a spin, he was not. He was a little reluctant. So we've definitely got a gap to bridge here.
Yeah. I think there will be some generational differences there. It's also interesting that there's so much data there, which sort of like the flying cars takes you back to a cockpit, where on the airplane there's so much happening. And it feels like we should be simplifying the user interface, but in a sense, maybe we're shifting from drivers to conductors and the UI is changing.
I think that's a fair statement. I mean, and I think it's, to go a step further just with what Tesla's got going on, how easy they've made car ownership, right? I mean, they've simplified all of the things around the ownership experience. I mean that from the, from everything, the purchase experience was so easy. Getting the car easy, obviously. Driving it, I find super easy. Maintenance, they come to your house, right? I mean, you just click a button, set an appointment, and they're there. I mean, think about how much money and time other dealerships have spent on their waiting room of their parts department, right? I mean, there's, it's kind of this, it's an interesting new way to think about car ownership and cars. So
Yeah.
keep an eye on it.
Yeah. No, it is. It's really interesting. Okay. Back to the rapid fire. If
Sure.
you could have a robot that did anything that wasn't one of your robots, what is it?
Make my bed. Make
Oh,
my bed. So a robot that makes the bed every morning. That when you get out of it, we're a bed making family. I wasn't necessarily. My wife was definitely brought that into. You got to make the bed every day. Which I've been trained to do, and our kids are. We're trying to train our kids to do. I know not everybody is of the same mindset, but I think it's a good way to start. And I think it'd be great to have a robot that could take care of that for you.
I don't think anyone watching the video version of this would be surprised that the sport coat guy is the bed maker and the guy in t-shirt is the not bed maker. I would never have a robot make my bed because I couldn't care less.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
exactly.
That's awesome. And I got one more on my, it's not very rapid fire if I don't do it fast, is it? Okay. Then, so we talked about the flying cars and the freedom. If you could put on a VR headset and go anywhere or anytime, where would that be?
That's a powerful one, right? So anywhere, if I'm just going to be an observer and um, and not have to be a participant, because I don't know that I would want to be, it would be for me. It would be back into the Revolutionary War. And I might be informed because we just had a school project roll through this house with my daughter. But what a time to be alive! What a time to be part of that. I mean, they were this group of people really fighting for their freedom, fighting for their way of life. And I don't know. I guess I think about that. I don't think about the Roman Empire as much as as much as I don't know if I'm supposed to, but that Revolutionary War period for me is a time that I think would be really powerful to be alive. I mean, just the beginning of our country and all the people were enduring during that time.
Yeah. Okay, that's fascinating. Okay, so back to the bed making. What gets you out of bed in the morning? Like, what is that thing that caused you to do what you do, or caused you to, what's the thing that gets you up in the morning?
There's a lot of things, right? There's some that are personal, some that are professional, and I could probably go a couple different ways. I'm a family guy, and that's definitely a driving force for me. I do what I do so that I can be with my family. That's a fact. Now I do what I do because it's been part of a career path that I've really been kind of chasing and pursuing things that I find fun and that I want to be part of, right? So I've taken a career path that has led me from finance to the restaurant world to now to automation in and around the hospitality business. And it makes more sense when you kind of sit and talk about the different pieces. But what has been really fun for me is to think back about the fact that my favorite book as a child was Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. And I loved that book because it was bringing food to people in an automated way, and it was just food was there, and it was part of the life, and it was easy to get. And then, I mean, there's a lot of other stories and other themes in that book, but that's one of the ones that I took from that. I loved our microwave when we got a microwave, and I was in second grade because it now allowed me as a second grader to start to cook snacks, right? And so I became a bit of a chef, a microwave chef. But it was this new technology that kind of came into our house and allowed me to do that. And so it's for me, it's always kind of been on the back of my mind that cooking is something that I've always loved. the hospitality space, this idea of new and efficient ways of doing that, that's always kind of been there. I pursued a business path, through education and through the early part of my career, but it's brought me back to where I'm at, which is thinking about food, thinking about new, efficient, fun, creative, automated ways to deliver that food, whether it's food or this hospitality experience. So it's, for me, it's kind of been that it's been this drive towards efficiency, but also sprinkled in with food and creativity and hospitality. And it's been really fun for me to kind of feel like I'm in a place where we're able to deliver it, deliver on all of those fronts.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I like all this automation, and the reason I got into robotics has a lot to do with my overall laziness. So as a guy who makes his bed in the morning, you don't strike me as the guy who got into robots for utter laziness.
No, but I like efficiency for
Yeah.
sure, and I like when things are done consistently, and I like when things are done, in a timely fashion, on time. So for me, automation, robotics really speak to all of those things, and I think, I think when you start to bring those into the hospitality and the service sectors, you're kind of unleashing really this uniform approach to a very dynamic environment, I guess would be the right way to think about it.
Yeah. What gets uniform there and what gets timely there that hits your not Brian's lazy button?
Yeah, it's the ability for consistency of product. So coming through the restaurant space, right? Restaurant food waste is just become something that's assumed and expected. It's always something that you've got to monitor. It's something that you've got to control and manage, right? If you can start to automate the processes around food or beverage production, you can really start to talk about what you're saving there from that waste perspective, right? Waste is 1 to 2% of total revenue when you think about some of these restaurant businesses.
And they're pretty thin margins over there.
They're thin margins, super thin margins, and if you can cut back on that, you can start to add that back to that profit line.
Okay, I was in Austin the other day, and I went to this well-known barbecue place. I didn't know it was well-known. It was walkable from my hotel, and I didn't know they had beef ribs left. So I get to the front of the thing, and I said, "Wait a minute! Nobody told us about the beef ribs. You have beef ribs?" And she goes, "I got 2. Which one do you want?" And normally when I'm in a restaurant, I'm like, "You pick." We could talk about that with the whole robotics thing too, but I'm like, "You pick." So she hands me this rib, puts it on my, they weigh it. That's how you pay for the food there, right? 1.8 pounds. And I'm traveling, so there's no way I can take it home. So that rib is gone, man. And I was almost crying does it help with that? It probably doesn't help with that side of it, right?
Well, I don't think it does help in that sense because, they did their job. They sold it to you, it sounds like, right? So that's not, they're not concerned about that, unfortunately.
So, but how do they fix the waste side? Like, how does it get fixed on the restaurant side? What's that portion?
So specifically,
No
I
pun
can
intended.
talk about our robot Adam. So Adam is our dual-armed AI-enabled humanoid barista robot at the moment. Barista mixologist. He can really make any type of beverage you would want. Deployed currently making as a coffee robot, deployed also as a mixologist where he makes cocktails down at Globe Life Field where the Texas Rangers play. But the idea that you're able to pour those drinks, whatever they are, whether you're talking about the liquor that goes into a cocktail or the cream that goes into a latte, that's going to be down to the milliliter, right? And that's not going to be the case more often than not with a human pourer of those beverages. So that's one real upfront way where that that waste can be managed, and that.
How does it pour?
So Adam is a unique robotic solution, right? In that it is a robot that is behind and set up with the envelope that would include all of the ingredients and tools needed to make a drink. So there's no liquid running through Atom, right?
Okay, that's one of the things I was wondering.
Atom is a standalone robot that can be that, and that really allows us to work with partners and customers who have all types of different needs and wants for what they would like Atom to do, right? We can build the solution, whether we have him pouring coffee where he would work with an espresso machine to pour the shot, to pull the shot. And then there would be a pump system where some of the creamers or sweeteners would go through. If it was an ice drink, he coordinates with an ice maker that's right in his working envelope. If he were set up making cocktails, he's actually grabbing the bottle of liquor and tipping it upside down, counting, putting it back. So it's the right level of pour, and then that's kind of coupled with then for the mixes, stuff like that would come through that pump system as well. So it really we can really customize it to build a solution that can make as many drinks within reason as a customer might want.
Okay, so growing up, I worked at this restaurant bar in my hometown, and the manager comes over to the bartender one day and is chewing him out for not measuring any of the drinks. And as she's chewing him out, he reaches back behind him, grabs a vodka or something, and pours it into like a giant mug, takes the mug, grabs a shot glass, pours it into the shot glass, and it just perfectly fills the shot glass. And end of discussion. She walked away. So is that what Atom is doing?
Yes, basically that is what Atom is doing, and that is a unique and talented bartender right there that was able to do that, which is phenomenal.
While being yelled at.
While being yelled at.
While
exactly,
being yelled
right?
at.
That's
top notch.
That's worth their weight right there. But I think how we position our robots, Atom or others, is that they're really filling a gap of some labor shortfalls and or the tasks that I think are kind of redundant, repetitive, and pull the employees away from, specifically we're talking about the hospitality and service sector now, pull those employees away from servicing their guests, right? And so we want to position Atom, and don't get me wrong, we're definitely building more of an entertainment and engagement experience. Atom is able to recognize when people walk in to place an order and to take orders and to build that customer engagement. But we also have a number of employees that would be around Atom and working alongside Atom, right? So there will be there's room here, we believe, for humans and robots to work together, to collaborate together here for what I believe is a meaningful time period here going forward.
Was it Tom Cruise? What's the movie where they're
Cocktail, right?
Cocktail.
So
does Atom spin the bottle?
That gets brought up by every.
Does he juggle them
at every event we're at, and it was amazing to me because that's just a reference that that we all get when somebody says it. I have a coworker though who had to confess to me that he has no idea what people are talking about when they ask about Cocktail, and I was like, oh man, this is one of those moments in my life where I'm realizing how old I am now, I guess.
It's going to be required reading to start at the company, right?
It really will be.
That's awesome. So, and that kind of that entertainment part, how does that play out, do you think, more broadly? Like, what are those pieces of hospitality that we improve on the entertainment side, and do you think it's just because it's a robot it becomes entertaining? Or
I think that is certainly a big part of it right now. And,
yeah, right.
And what I think is the most exciting part is that what I think robotics and the automation and the power of AI now embodied in these robots means for operators of these hospitality and service businesses is going to be limitless. And I think that it's exciting to think about these as new tools in their toolkits to develop really, really powerful customer experiences, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what that's what the hospitality and the service sector businesses are all about. They're selling an experience.
Mhm.
And I think we've been in a place, when you talk about the hospitality industry in general, right? It's always been one that's always been strained from a labor perspective. And then we got to, COVID, which is still such a critical point in our history. So restaurants had to, for survival, right? They had to either become delivery only, or had to modify their menu, take away a significant portion of it. They had a lot of things, parts of that service that they had to strip away. We went to a hotel customer who showed us a line in a common area in their facility that was open to guests, but beyond which they did not mop because they couldn't afford the labor to mop this area that really was supposed to be part of the part of a kind of a business center type area where customers should have had access to it, but they just kind of closed it off. So a lot of the things, a lot of the benefits, a lot of the services that were inherent in these restaurants or hotels had been stripped away, and they've been slow to come back. And what I think is really exciting is to think about how these very creative people who are hospitality operators, whether it's restaurants, hotels, et cetera, are going to start to use our robots to start to offer a unique and fun and new experience. The most exciting part to me is that putting this power in the hands of all of these other people is really going to unlock things that I haven't even thought of yet.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what you said about like being hospitality. There's this entertainment aspect to it, and whether it's entertainment but it's kind of that human touch that you have from people, the bartender that you complain about your life to or whatever.
Right.
How do you think that goes forward? Do you complain to your robot bartender?
I don't know about you, but I talk to my phone a fair amount today, right? And we talk to my kids are grown up asking Alexa for more help with their homework than they're even asking me from time to time. Maybe they think Alexa's smarter than I am. I don't know, but maybe, right? Maybe that is part of the next thing, or maybe it's that these bars are able to more fully automate some of the back of house stuff, and that there's still going to be a person there. I think what's important about how we at Rich Tech Robotics are thinking about this is that one, we're thinking about cobots, right? So our robots are specifically designed to work alongside people. Right, they're not taking over any task fully and completely. Right, they're going to be either delivering from one person to the next, or they're going to be need to be replenished by a human. So there is that built in that these are all cobots. And then what's really unique about this hospitality and service sector space is that these operators will build out experiences, picking and choosing the types of automation that they want to use, showcasing it in varying ways, right? They're not all going to look exactly the same. Now, we actually are going to be opening and operating some restaurants, some beverage restaurants. Klaufi and Tea is our own proprietary restaurant brand. We just opened one in Las Vegas in Town Center. And that you're going to see Adam, trust me, you'll see Adam up front, and he'll be the star of our show. But we'll also think about how other operators are going to pick and choose to use our automation solutions in varying ways and to highlight them differently. And so I think that's really an important thing, that we want to be the company that customers from these hospitality and service sector operations come to and say, Rich Tech Robotics has a solution that we're looking for. We want to deliver product, whether that's a restaurant meal from the kitchen to the dining room, or whether that's drugs from an on-site pharmacy up to a nursing station in a hospital, right? We will have solutions for that delivery. Now with Adam and Scorpion, we're entering this production level where we can really have these two robots positioned as service employees, at the moment focused on the beverage landscape, but we'll continue to grow out that capability.
So it's interesting because if you look at things like maybe the warehouse space, You'll see folks who change the warehouse for the robot instead of trying to cram the robot into their warehouse. So the restaurant thing I find really interesting because I've thought about this for restaurants or for grocery stores. Like, should the grocery store look like the grocery store if we roll out robotics in it? Should it just be a window that the robot hands out exactly the set of groceries that I ordered? And by the way, it chopped the carrots for me because that's how I wanted them. So do we rearrange the restaurant and the structure around the robot? What do we do?
Yes, I want to answer that, and then remind me to come back to chopped carrots. But
Okay.
because I do have something I want to say about that. But I think what we've seen with Instacart, right? So there's not a whole lot of robots there, but we've changed the grocery experience dramatically with Instacart, right? So we are super users of Instacart in my house, and it is convenient. It is easy. I'm not going to say that it saves money because we do pay our annual subscription. We do tip the drivers, so we're definitely paying a premium there. But I rarely get food that I don't need or want when I order from Instacart. However, if I walk through a grocery store, I'm going to be loading up with probably all sorts of things that may or may not get eaten because I'm probably too hungry when I go to the grocery store. But it's changed that, right? And now we've seen where we all relied on the delivery aspect of Instacart. But what are grocery stores starting to do? They're starting to do, okay, well, we'll just shop for you. We'll do the picking. You come and retrieve it, right? So that's starting to be a new dynamic that they're looking for. So, will we start to see grocery stores that are exclusively delivery only? Absolutely. And I believe if it hasn't already happened, you're starting to see that in different ways, whether it's, for example, we have a Sprouts, right? A Sprouts is a organic grocery store. So you can order from Sprouts through Instacart, or you can order from Sprouts Express, right? So that's definitely a different location. That's not the same grocery store. It's probably more of a warehouse. It's more directly set up, probably more efficient. And that's, it's going to continue to be this idea of optionality, of giving people different choices of what they want and how they want to receive product, right? I mean, I think that's what we're all, back to the third party delivery. We've seen kind of this ebb and flow of everybody's all in. We all thought through COVID. I think that experience of third party delivery got fast forwarded probably 10 years because of COVID. Right. And now we're starting to see the pushback.
All kinds of stuff that way. Yeah.
And now we see the pushback already because people are understanding, well, I don't want to pay, 30%, 40% more to have it delivered. But I do like ordering it with my thumb, and then I'll, drive 5 minutes to go pick it up.
And we kind of just back and forth until we find the perfect fit there.
Right. And I think that goes. But what you said about cut carrots, I think to me is something that has kind of, for me, from at least as long as I've been on this journey of kind of trying to bring automation into the cooking and restaurant space, is really because I think that through automation, what I would like to see happen at the end of some period of time, hopefully sooner than later, is bringing more of that processing of product closer to a consumer, right? So, and I think if you can do that, right, if you can bring the processing closer, you can probably save, on a lot of the extra ingredients that need to be added to our food system, and you can bring fresher food closer to the consumer, which I think at the end of the day, for me, that would be a huge win for us, due to what I think would probably be, automation and robotics.
That's really interesting. So here's the out of the box moment, I think, for this, which is, where do you put the robot? So for example, like I make these smoothies and I got mad at the smoothie company. So now I started making my own. So every night I'm chopping heads of cauliflower away. Like, this is my full-time job, is cutting cauliflower. And so the first thought is like, oh, put a robot on my kitchen counter to cut this cauliflower. But in fact, if I could order it from Instacart or from the robot grocery store or whatever, where it comes prepared the way I want it, but it
Sure.
didn't have to be, the farmer doesn't make everybody's cauliflower the way I want it, right? But the
So
grocery
it's
store
got to get
could.
processed. It's got to get processed at somewhere, at some point
Yeah.
between farmer and between your smoothie, right? And
Right,
so
right.
my belief is that if we can move a lot of that closer to the consumer in general,
Yeah.
that ends up for me looking like a healthier food system, really.
Yeah.
And so to your point, I don't know exactly where we put them, but I never expected, well, I did because I grew up with it, but I'm sure people, 20, 30 years older than me didn't expect to be able to go and pull cash out of their bank account wherever they wanted to, right? So, but now there's ATMs on every corner, and you can go and access your cash and get your cash. Now
Or-
we're getting into a place where we don't even need cash, but
Bump my phone into your phone.
right, exactly, right. I mean, that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
so I think that the idea of what's going to happen with robotics, we're still so very early in this development, and I think that gets us to the discussions around AI and what everybody's so enamored with AI, and rightfully so, in my opinion. But what that has meant is ChatGPT, and it's been a new way for you to come up with some new creative writing sample of some degree. Well, now let's embody that. And now let's use AI to train robots. And that to me is where you start to get to a place where, very rapidly you can be training robots to do all sorts of things that you never thought of. And now if you can have that AI localized in these machines, that really becomes a powerful next step. And maybe maybe one of these will be able to make my bed. I don't know, sooner than later, right?
Yeah, no, it's I love this thing of like where we put them. And then the other one that always gets brought up is like, well, isn't this taking our jobs? Or if we're doing the same thing and it's just taking jobs away, or like you said, Instacart's not necessarily cheaper for us. Cost me an extra $30 to get those groceries or whatever. But I have what I think is a beautiful example of where it saves us money and provides like life value. Is my grandmother is 99. And she unfortunately last year, the year before, broke her back. She broke like a disc in her back, and she went to the doctor, and they said, "Oh, do you know, you're 99, like sometimes stuff just breaks." They're like, "Do you happen to know how the disc broke?" And she goes, "Yeah, it's when I was loading the wheelbarrow." So
that's great.
She's moving. There is no slowing down. Grandma, like, why were you loading a wheelbarrow? These leaves aren't going to move themselves. So, but she, thanks to Instacart, stopped driving because she had still been driving to the grocery store, and she didn't mind doing that or whatever, but it's maybe a little safer for her now. She doesn't need the car or the insurance or all those things. And now you pay a little bit extra for that Instacart delivery, but have released yourself of all those monthly expenses. So it's probably a lot cheaper for her, actually.
Sure.
By now shifting to this thing. So I think there's a lot of things like that we're seeing where they change life, or
And in robotics specifically, that's a huge one that people are talking about when you talk about the healthcare and the ability for robotics to help in not, I don't want to say end of life care, but in prolonging elderly people's ability to have autonomy and to stay in their homes, right? Which everybody wants. My mother, unfortunately passed away a few years ago. And I think it was a few years after my dad had passed. And I think part of what broke her spirit wise was obviously losing her husband. But then shortly after that, we moved her from our home into not even a senior living facility, but just a smaller place. And she hated that place, and I think that was certainly probably didn't do anything positive for her spirit and for her, desire to be around. She loved the home, but it had stairs that she couldn't navigate as
Yeah.
well as we would have liked. And it wasn't so it was the right thing, but yeah, if there's ways to through automation and robotics to allow people to stay in their homes longer, or at least as long as they would like to, that's a real benefit, a real
And
societal
and and
benefit.
I think the self-driving car thing has a huge piece there too. Can make it
Absolutely.
way safer for the elderly to continue driving, continue getting around.
I, we with some, in-laws or some other older people that would maybe choose to not drive at night because vision is failing. So in all other ways they're perfectly able and capable, but your eyes start to go at some point, and so you choose not to drive at night, and so that limits you. But now you could have a car that can very safely navigate the roads at any time of day, right? That freedom, right? I mean, I touched on this earlier, I think but that to me is that if there's a great benefit on the other side of these robots and this automation, it is freedom, that giving freedom back to all of us to pursue the things that we want to pursue. And I'm talking about that with my kids, as I mentioned, trying to get them, figure out how to give them some communication device that's appropriate, that allows them to have more freedom, right? Talk about that with older people, allowing them to stay in their homes and to drive around if in a self-driving car, or have the goods and services brought to them through some new delivery model that really gives them more freedom back to their everyday lives.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's it's a little bit counter to this piece. I saw with all the LLMs and all that's happening, there's some people complaining about the LLMs saying, we thought we were supposed to be getting robots that would do the dirty work so we could do more art and creativity, not creating the robots that do the art and creativity so we could do more harvesting rice or whatever that is. What do you think about that take on things and that aspect of it?
I think that the easiest way to demonstrate how capable they are is through the arts and through these other things. So I think that is, if you showed the majority of the country, pages and pages of code, that wouldn't mean a whole lot to them, right? But is that super powerful? Absolutely. But if you show somebody, well, look at how this is painting or putting together a digital image in real time based on my instruction. This was one of the cutouts I went to at NVIDIA's GTC last year, right? Where they're up there talking and they're putting together a digital image that is amazing, and it's real time and it's accessing and it's so powerful, right? That's creative, that's cool, but gosh, think about all the technology behind that to be able to deliver that. And this is a way to show this to everybody, and you can quickly, right? As they say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and many, many more probably. But that's a way for people to visually see it and understand it. But the power of the technology behind what is needed to be able to do that means that these things are more than capable of doing these quote unquote dirty jobs that nobody wants to do, and we will have them doing them in the near future.
And as you mentioned that, I'm thinking about CES, and there was a hologram company there, and you can kind of think of them as fans. So they spin this fan so you can see through it, but they light up lights on it so that it shows things in 3D on the fan, right? And they had a cool mashup, which I think we're getting into some cool stuff of technology, which is they had an LLM driving the voice and the what it's deciding to say behind somebody else's tech that made a person that could move and somebody else's ML presumably, and then the hologram technology so that you saw this virtual person standing in front of you in 3D, and then you can start interacting and asking it questions. And I thought, shoot, when we restructured our office, we don't have a great place to have reception, and I thought, why don't we have a virtual 3D person standing in the front of our office who can interact? Like the UPS guy comes and says, oh, could you run into the back, please? Or Matt, we've been waiting for you all day. I'm so glad you're here. Let Brian know you're here and he'll be right out.
So that, I mean, what you just described, right? That's the experiential stuff, that when talking about the hospitality and the service sector space,
Yeah.
that's exactly right, right? You're talking about your receptionist, which, that function is supposed to be welcoming of people into your place of business, right? So they have a service job or hospitality job. But yeah, that's all sorts of new ways where you're coupling this, the hologram technology. That's super cool. And couple that with some automation around cooking or preparing beverages, and then you automate the delivery of these things. You start to really be able to cobble together, and not cobble, that's a wrong word, but you really start to strategically put together a brand new experience altogether,
Yeah.
right? That is
Yeah.
something that you and I have never experienced before, but yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. And I think you're 100% right to say cobble. Like that's what we do first. We cobble them
Right.
together and we figure it out, and they're clunky and they break and whatever. But over time, we put more and more sort of professionalism or polish on them to get to the
Absolutely.
end place we really want to go with them. Okay. So we talked about some really cool different pieces today. If you had a magic wand and you could just, whatever you do with magic wands, wave it, I suppose, at whatever you want. You can wave it at physics or what do you wave it at? What problem do you solve? What do we get over the hump on and
Oh,
suddenly can do?
well, I'll try to keep this probably narrowed to the topics that we've been talking about. But I have become much more familiar with magic wands, as I keep
Okay.
bringing the kids into this. But we've just completed the Harry Potter series,
Okay. Yes.
on watching the movies, because we had a couple kids who completed reading the books, so we were able to sit down and watch them all, as a family. So that's good. So if I had a magic wand, there's some tough things about the power of AI and all that it could bring, and what I think it will bring for us. What you'll never get around, and maybe this is, probably even too much for a magic wand, is those people that would choose or be concerned about using these technologies for evil, right? For some nefarious objective, right? And so that's kind of the concern, and that's a bubble that's in people's minds, that they always get. Oh, you talk about all this AI and the ability for, for what's going to happen, but what about when the robots are training themselves, and they're going to take over the world, and you go down this path that can be dark and gloomy. And I think if there's a way to wave a magic wand to bring higher levels of security for everybody, whether that's, the stuff that people talk about, worried about, the AI, an AI transition, or just the security around communication devices with my kids' phones. So, and gosh, I said that at the very beginning, didn't I? I said my home security device. I sound like a paranoid guy, which is not really the case. Um, but I do think that being able to give people a sense of security around the future, around what's coming, with the technology, that I think is, if everybody could see it as hopefully as I do, which sounds, it sounds funny because I keep bringing up security, but I really look at this, what's on the forefront here with this AI revolution, and the embodiment of AI in these robotics, and really what's going to come fast and furious, I believe, from those two, those technologies meeting
Yeah.
up, is powerful, and I believe it's going to be wonderful. And will it be a straight line? No, right? Will there
Right.
be, fits and starts? And we just talked about that with a third party delivery. It's kind of ebbing and flowing of how we as a society want to use it. And I think that's going to be the same with AI, with robotics, that we're gonna hopefully uncover a lot of really powerful use cases for this technology. And if we could make sure that we're doing it and moving in a safe and orderly fashion, which it doesn't always align with technology, but
I don't know if
um,
you're going to get your
but that'd be a good
orderly
one.
wish, Matt.
Orderly is probably too much. Safe,
It might be too much.
safe and
But
secure.
but your point about security, right? I think it's well taken, because if I have the freedom through my robot or my AI or whatever to rob you, well, that's not any freedom for you. So
Right.
there certainly needs to be an aspect of security and safety. We even need to have some feeling of safety, or we won't explore some of those things.
Absolutely. And
So
maybe
it makes
that's
a
what
lot
I
of
was
sense.
help me drive down to what I was getting at, is that the people need to have a comfort and a feeling of security around these new solutions, so that we can really explore what they have the ability to offer us.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like your point about like the security system and just being able to see remotely and whatever. It's those things. I find the same thing. Like, it's so helpful to be able to just like talk to my neighbor because they brought something over, but I'm halfway across the country, and I can just say,
Right.
"Oh, sorry guys, I'm not home. Just you drop it there, and I'll bring it back when I'm back Monday." It's just such a simple thing, but it actually provides a better human connection instead of me just not being home for my neighbor.
Right. Right. I agree.
So I think we've got some interesting things with robots helping us provide more and better human connection as we move forward.
I hope that that's the future, and I really believe it. And I think at Rich Tech Robotics, we're really focused on delivering solutions today, and that's what we're about. Our robots are out in the world working today, delivering solutions that take away uh, from, or are able to perform the tasks that keep people apart, right? The things that require, whether it's the waiter who has to run by you 100 times before he can stop at your table, right? Let's allow that waiter to be focused on the guest experience, right? That's going
Yeah.
to be a better experience for the customer, a better experience for the waiter, a better experience for the restaurant. And he doesn't need to be in and out that kitchen door 100 times during a shift, right? You can send a robot in and out that kitchen door.
Yeah, absolutely. So, why don't you tell us a little bit more on where do we find Matt? Where do we find Rich Tech? What do we look
Sure.
for? How do we find you and connect with you?
Sure. So Rich Tech Robotics, we're headquartered in Las Vegas, hospitality capital of the world, in our opinion. So it's the right place for a hospitality and robotics company to be located. Our robots are, like I mentioned, are deployed at over 300 locations across the country. Many of which people can go see. Right, we've started a partnership with a company called Ghost Kitchen Brands, which is opening up restaurants inside Walmart locations. So we've got a number of those set up where people can come in and experience a coffee served by Adam, our robot. And we're starting to build out our own locations like Clowfee and Tea, which is in Town Center in Las Vegas. So that's a great place for people to come and really get the full Adam experience. And then hopefully you'll hear a lot more from us. So we're really excited at what we're doing at Rich Tech Robotics, and we think the future is now, and we're happy to be a big part of it.
Yeah, I love it. That's so exciting. And I wish I knew you were in Vegas. I would have stopped out when I was in CES, but maybe I'll stop out and see you next time I'm out at UNLV.
Please do. Please do.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Matt, thanks so much for taking the time. It's been awesome having you, and been a great conversation.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me, Brian.
All right. And now that our robot selves are done with this conversation, we'll transfer it on to our human selves to continue from here.
This is the outro recording.
I don't think it is.
We can start it.
False.
This is definitely the outro recording.
I don't think it is.
Anyway, I'm just going to start and say, okay, it's definitely recording.
You didn't say anything.
No, I'm gonna start. Okay. Hi, this is the outro recording. It doesn't matter.
No, I don't think that's how we do it. What are we going to talk about?
We have to talk about the fact that you said, I really got into robotics, and this is just me paraphrasing, right? You're like, I really got into robotics so I can be lazy. This man talked about making his bed and doing that, and you was like, false. I got into this so I can sleep longer and not make my bed up.
That's true, but I thought you wanted to complain that you don't like entertaining robots.
You don't want us to talk about the fact that he said he uses robotics for efficiency, and you were like, yeah.
We can talk about it.
I use it for laziness. But yeah, I thought that was kind of funny.
You just want to talk about me being lazy.
Yeah.
But it's fair.
Yeah. I thought that was very funny. And then he continues to talk about the things he does with robotics and like the things that their robotics can do. And I thought, why do we need our robots to be interesting? Why do we need it to be entertaining? Okay, I fell back into your trap.
My cleverly laid trap.
Yeah. No, but I'm serious. Like, I remember this whole conversation, right? Like, listening to this conversation was super interesting. I really got into it. Because you know how skeptical I am about everything, right?
I do, yeah. And how much you want to talk about how lazy I am.
Yes,
Yeah.
of course. Every chance I get. But more so, I just really thought it was so interesting that he was saying that their robot Adam, I think that it was Adam. I took some notes on it. And he said Adam is like the bartender robot and he does these entertaining tricks and stuff like a regular or a bartender would. And I took some step back and thought about it. I was like, why do we need our robots to be human like? Why do we need it to be interesting? Why do we need it to not act like a robot? I mean, we see this thing, it's a robot. Why are we adding human qualities to robotics? So I kind of want to dive into that today. Like,
I think we just did.
No, but you have to explain it to me though. Right? Like, explain to me why you guys came up with this idea that my robot, even ChatGPT, right? Like, it would not sound robotic. It would sound more human-like. And I think we've talked about this, but I still don't get it. Why does it have to sound human-like? Why does it have to do human-like things? Is it for efficiency? Is it for entertainment? What in the human psyche makes us feel okay having robots that are human-like?
Okay, but last night I went to the Wang Theater in Boston.
Okay.
And I saw a new play they just came out with that was performed entirely by robots.
Okay. This is a true story.
No, I didn't do that. That's
Like,
why would we want that?
yeah, I wouldn't want to see that.
Yeah. I don't think so. I don't think anybody wants to see that. This is Star Trek spent their whole time exploring why we could Commander Data do that, and do we care?
I don't know any Star Trek analogy, but I'll just sit through this. Keep going.
They spent a long time discussing this. I don't know what conclusion we came to, but I think there's an interesting thing here where it's like your bartender, you go to your bartender now more than just so someone can hand you a drink.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're complaining to your bartender or whether they're entertaining, right? I was on a cruise recently and there was this one bartender who was just freaking hilarious.
Yeah.
Like making fun of everybody that was ordering drinks and super fast making drinks. And one guy came over and said, I want a whatever. And he's like, oh, no, I can't make one of those. Would you like 4? And he made him 4 or something. Like it's always something. And so that was fun. Like people were there, not just for what the drinks he was mixing,
right,
but for this guy being entertaining. And so in a sense, if the robots, doing, did we mention it there a couple earlier, the movie with Tom Cruise where they're blue, what is it?
I think I've forgotten it.
I don't know. Anyway, Cocktail.
Oh yeah.
It's not called Blue anything. And they're like spinning the bottles and throwing stuff up in the air and all this kind of stuff. Like if my robot was juggling, like I don't even drink, and I'd order a whiskey or something just to watch the robot juggle the bottles or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why it would need to do that to pour me a whiskey, but so something more complicated. So that's, I think, interesting.
Yeah.
But here's this other side of robots is like every time I go out to the West Coast, there's robots running around delivering stuff.
Yeah.
And there's like a whole gaggle of people following behind the robot,
To see the entertainment. Yeah.
just watching the robot drive down the road.
Yeah.
Right? I imagine that's probably what it looked like when the first cars appeared and everybody else was on horses. And people were probably just had their horses following the car to see what the car looked like.
Yeah.
But we don't do that now.
Okay.
So there's a form of entertainment with robotics that is because they're new and people want to see the robot. And like, if you put a robot bartender in your bar, people are coming,
Okay.
but they're not going to come tomorrow.
To stop you, do you think, right? Do you think that it is intentionally done or is just naturally people find it entertaining? Like I don't like they did add that element to their robots, right? They did add that element of entertainment
Right.
to Adam. But do you think it's a thing that even if they didn't add it, it would still draw people, or they had a reason? That's a question I think I should have asked that, but like, do they
Yeah.
have a reason to add, or robotic companies having a reason to add entertainment, and should they even add entertainment to it? You know?
Yeah. And I think we're solving for tomorrow.
Right.
But when you look at today and what's happening today,
Right.
if just the fact that you have a robot in your hotel, people will come check it out. Think about it. When we had our booth at CES,
Yeah.
across the way from us
Yeah.
is this other booth. I have no idea what they did, honestly.
I didn't either.
But I promise you it had nothing to do with coffee and nothing to do
Yeah.
with robots. And they had a robot making coffee. And Stevie Wonder came
Yeah,
by.
it took all the attention. It did
Right.
take all the attention.
Right. And so that was just because there was the robot wasn't whistling. It wasn't singing My Cherie Amour.
Yeah.
It wasn't flipping coffee. It was just a robot. And so people were coming to see that. That's entertaining. That's brand new, right?
Mm-hmm.
As long as it's brand new, people will come to see the robot make coffee.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as all of the Starbucks have a coffee making robot and that's been around, and then it's old news.
Yeah.
And no one will come because it is a robot.
Yeah.
So I like the idea that they're sort of anticipating this for Adam. So if Adam is entertaining
Yeah.
in the way we like to watch, not just because it exists as a robot, but because it's actually doing interesting things,
Yeah.
then cool. Then I'll come and watch it do new things. And presumably the developers will need to add new tricks into the repertoire. So every time I come to the bar, if it does the same tricks, that'll get old too. But if he does new stuff and they come up with new things for it to do, and it does a backflip while holding my drink perfectly stable, right?
I'm just imagining like a bartender backflipping your drink. Probably gonna be like, "Whoa, ma'am!" If it falls, if they drop it.
But if you get the kinematics just right, that robot
True.
might be able to keep it perfectly
Yeah.
still while it does that. That would be cool.
That would be cool.
Wouldn't be
'cause-
cool every single night.
True. I think when I was listening to this, I kind of made, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the thing I got out of it was I made this distinction that, oh, maybe because it's for service, that's why they're making it interesting. And then it got me to thinking that is there a thing in service businesses, that is there a culture, or do we value a form of like entertainment in service businesses that we've taken for granted for so long? Like it just got me back to thinking that our robotics, and this might be controversial, but our robotics making us really step back and kind of appreciate how we've been living so far. Like people take it for granted that when they go to a service place, right? They have someone they're talking to, there's somebody they're interacting with.
Yeah.
And so now to make a service business efficient, you also have to think about not how good the robot is going to be, but also that culture that we've cultivated for a long time. And so when I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. Is it because it's service, that's why they're doing that? Or is because every robot needs to have that?
Okay, let's throw it way far into the future. If we have Rosie at home, like from the Jetsons,
Okay.
So that's like the humanoid robot in the Jetsons. It's doing the
Is this a
dishes.
TV
And
show?
is it a cartoon? Yeah.
From when?
Long ago, Harriet. Long ago.
I'm born 98.
I know. George Jetson was before 1998.
Oh my God.
But they were imagining this future
Yeah.
where they're in flying cars and they have a robot housekeeper.
Mm-hmm.
And so imagine we get to the point where your dishes are done, your laundry is done, the things you have to do at home are done by robots. It's all taken care of. There's nothing you need to do that's work at home. Like all the things are taken care of. What's a vacation?
What do you mean? What's a vacation?
If I go to get pampered somewhere,
Yeah,
isn't it that people are taking care of all my needs?
true.
What if all my needs are already taken care of at home? Then what's a vacation?
Oh, then you don't take a vacation anymore.
I mean, I think you do, but I don't think you take it to have your needs taken care of and you don't have to worry about it. I think you take it for the different interaction, the different experience that you have.
Oh, okay.
Like the reason people travel, it's not just because their dirt is a different color than ours, right? Put on red glasses and look at your dirt and let it be red. That's not why we do that,
Yeah.
right? We do it for the experience we get in those different places. And so I think that's what Matt really is bringing into the service industry is understanding the human element. Like we're more than just a set of needs that need to be taken care of,
Yeah.
right? We crave interaction.
Yeah.
And there's just something about that, how you present that interaction and
Yeah.
that concierge at the hotel that I could have just typed into my laptop and now
Right.
have the conversation with somebody.
She's like,
and
how was your day? How was your flight? Yeah.
right. She tells me what restaurant to go to. I go to the restaurant. I come back
True.
and she goes, how
Yeah.
was it? Did you like it? Oh my gosh, no. I got the rudest waiter there. What, right? Like whatever it is.
That really does pull me back. I don't remember what episode it was, but it really does pull me back into this podcast episode that we did talk about why. Oh, yes, I know. It's
Are you going to talk about the hot dogs?
no, I'm not talking about the hot dogs. It is
Harriet's a professional hot dog eater on the side.
but while we're talking about that reminds me of another episode, like podcast episode we had with Russ, right?
Yeah.
When he was part of like making the voice of ChatGPT and all these LLMs sound human like.
Right.
I remember thinking that was so cool. At first I was like, oh, do we really need this? But I also thought, that's pretty cool because I would like to talk to a more human like tone. It is more enjoyable to listen to. So I guess that element is maybe we do need a human element to robots, you know?
So it's a really interesting discussion because I've always subscribed to the Colin Angle angle, which is that you don't want humanoid robots. You want robots designed to solve the task.
Oh, you don't want that. You wouldn't want a humanoid robot.
In general, I think humans are super complex.
Okay.
And overly so for most of the things we want a robot to do.
Okay.
So if you want a robot to clean your floor, to build a life-size Harriet to now push a tool around to clean the floor, why don't you just make a little Roomba that runs around on the floor and cleans it? That's better.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's harder for the life-size Harriet to get under the couch, especially because the tool doesn't fit under the couch.
Oh, okay.
But the little Roomba fits under the couch.
Okay.
Okay, that's an argument against humanoid robotics. But there's a couple really great arguments for humanoid robotics.
Right.
So one is we've designed our world around humans. So dishwasher, guess what? The handle is just the right height for a human to pull. It fits the people. So building a robot that's just for the dishwasher, it might actually work pretty well if that was a humanoid robot. And the humanoid robot interacts not just with the dishwasher, but with many other systems around the home. It can get up and down stairs. It can do all sorts of stuff that you might need to do in a home. So it can be it can be multifunctional. The other side of that is you yank the dishwasher out and you replace it with a robot that fits the dish solving problem. Maybe you replace your sink and your dishwasher with one big robot. And when you're done with your dishes, you chuck them into the robot. And the robot figures out how to put them in, how to clean them, how to stack them, and outputs them on the other side. So
Okay.
it's not a dishwasher and it's not a sink anymore,
Yeah.
right? So you can design the systems around the robot
Okay.
and you get a more efficient robot,
Okay.
or you can do a humanoid robot that interacts with the systems as they are. But the other element of that you bring up is that we're used to interacting with humans and we anthropomorphize every aspect of robotics.
Meaning.
Meaning we think of them the way we think. We do this with machine learning.
Oh, yeah.
Machine learning is just a bunch of probability and statistics, but we think it's going to take over the world because that's what Pinky and the Brain were doing.
Yeah.
And we think, well, it thinks like us.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't, but it kind of looks like it thinks like us. And because we're us, we make everything the way we do, right? If I wake up every morning and I put on my socks first, and then I go about my day and I get ready, I think everyone in the world puts on their socks before they do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
We just think everyone else does what we
Yeah.
do. And not just everyone else, but everything else. So machine learning, it's just probability and statistics, but we say, oh, it thinks like I think. With robots, better or worse, we anthropomorphize. And so if we take this Rosie,
Mm-hmm.
is the humanoid robot in the house, one thing we do is we suddenly add kindness to it.
Okay. Yeah.
We kind of think like its feelings get hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
The dishwashing robot, we throw dishes in it or whatever, and we don't care
Yeah.
because we don't have feelings towards it.
Yeah.
That maybe makes it harder to do its job
Mm-hmm.
because we're being less conscientious as we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is this aspect of this very human element of us that interacts with robots differently. We've had a bunch of robots where we had to put googly eyes on them.
Yeah. I
Because
think you
as
mentioned that.
soon as you do that,
Mhm.
right?
It gets more interaction from people, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And people know which side the front is automatically because it has eyes on the front. You know, some robots maybe are symmetrical, and so it's hard to know which way is front or whatever. And if it matters, stick some eyeballs on it. Now everyone knows which way is front. You don't have to explain it. You don't have to write a manual to figure out where the front is. People immediately know. So there are things that I think probably honestly are built into our DNA,
Mm.
like the way babies recognize what an eyeball is,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so there are certain things like that we do that can have an interaction that way that can make it either better for the robot to do its job
Yeah.
or just makes it nicer for us. We care more about the robot or we like watching it
Yeah.
or whatever that is.
So, can I get your stance on this, right? Do you think moving forward, like, what is your takeaway from this? Do you think the future is going to be good with a product like this, like where we have a robot in service that has these features? I kind of want to know what you think about it, because in my opinion, I think this is an interesting new um thing for
Yeah.
us.
I think we need to not be afraid of brand new scenarios. Like today, we think about bartender. Let's say we find an efficient answer
Yeah.
to the bartender thing, and the human side of bartending goes away.
Mhm.
We just hand you the thing. What I'm not sure that's the greatest
Yeah,
idea,
yeah.
but let's say that happens, and then an entertaining robot of some way.
Yeah.
I don't mean it's going to be a comedian robot,
Yeah.
but a robot that is interesting to interact with shows up in a different venue.
Right.
And all of a sudden someone disrupts the whole way that we experience things. Maybe they disrupt the local pub with a completely different way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think there's some aspect of we always think about how do we replace what we do today,
Mm-hmm.
but there will always be these disruptions that don't replace what we do today.
Mm-hmm.
They completely change how we think about what we do today.
Okay.
I think we're going to have some of those. And by nature, I don't know what they are, but I think you're going to invent them.
Yeah. Okay. I was gonna ask something else, but I'm kind of nervous that might be too controversial.
Get out the social trolls. Calling all trolls. Go ahead.
Okay, one thing that also stuck out to me, right, is if we're okay, he said we're making I like robotics because for efficiency, and I think I brought that back because I
Mhm.
love that when he said that. I really love the fact that it was opposite to what he said to what you say. But I love that he said that, But I'm like, how fast are these robots? Are they more efficient than humans now? You
Mhm.
know, like
Mhm.
if the point is efficiency, I know how robots are built. Some of them do take a little bit longer, but are they how fast are they and how fast are they going to be?
So I think there's a couple different aspects to that answer. I think it's nuanced. So one is, if you think about the Roomba, it makes me laugh when people complain about how long it takes the Roomba to vacuum.
Yeah.
Because here's what you should be comparing. It took me 20 minutes to vacuum.
Yeah.
Now I don't even push the button. The thing's scheduled. I go to work, and when I come home, it's vacuumed. I don't
That is
care if
such
it
a
took 8
great
hours.
point. I never thought about it like that.
Who cares how long it takes the thing?
I
Like,
never thought
I
about
didn't
it
have
like
to do
that.
it,
Yeah.
right? So a lot of robotics today are slower than we are. They're slower than people are, but they can work all night.
They
They
take
can work
you out of the picture.
24/7.
Yeah.
That's right. I don't have to do the thing. Let the robot do the thing, or let more robots do the thing. And then it just becomes a metric of ROI. Like, how much does it cost to buy the robot?
Yeah.
What's your return on investment for that?
Yeah.
And it becomes that. The other side of the thing is we have always started with technology that didn't quite solve the problem, but was on the path to a solution we really needed.
Mm-hmm.
And we've innovated our way out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Can you give an example on that?
I think one of them might be early cars, how often you had to repair cars
Yeah.
and how much work they were to maintain. They went slow. They didn't go very far on a tank of gas,
Yeah.
right? Like to drive, I think from Boston to Pittsburgh is like 600 miles. So to drive there is 9 hours. It would have been at least double that in
The
a
horse was
car.
faster.
The horse was probably faster. Yeah, the horse had to spend less time stopping to drink than
Yeah.
you had to stop with your car to fill with gas and everything. And so, but over time, then through like the 50s and 60s, they built cars that were more robust. They could go further.
Yeah.
They went faster,
Mm-hmm.
but they still broke like 20,000 miles. You had to go get major service on a car.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're furious when we have to do anything major before 100,000 miles
Yeah.
on cheap cars, right? So we've innovated our way out of the thing that was like it solved some problems. And so some people were able to buy them. And right, so there was a market for cars. It wasn't everyone when they first came out.
Yeah.
Ford definitely tried to make them for everyone, but over time, that market grew as we innovated on the vehicles
Mm-hmm.
and then just kept innovating and innovating until now we have electric vehicles which don't require any gas and so on and so forth. And today, here's where we are in the innovation cycle.
Yeah.
The EVs don't go as far as the gas-powered cars.
True.
The new Tesla Roadster is allegedly will go over 600 miles on a single charge.
Oh wow.
So that's way farther
Yeah,
than a
that's much better.
gas-powered
Yeah.
car, right? So that innovation path, I think we'll eventually get to the point where the EVs go way further than the gas-powered vehicles on a single charge. So a lot of those things, starting with a solution isn't bad, and we'll innovate our way out of it.
So we should look forward to this in the future.
I think so. I think we've got the future is bright.
We're robots. I'm sure he wanted to say that part.
and us.
Oh, right. True.
All right. Thanks, everybody. This is Solving for Tomorrow. Hope you learned something awesome, and we would really value and appreciate your subscription or like or leave us a comment. Trolls, Harriet is looking for some comments.
I never
So,
said this.
leave some arguments for Harriet. She is looking to get into some social media battles.
I never said this. Please do not. Okay, maybe you can.
Thanks, everybody.